Please rise and pledge allegiance. Call meeting in order. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, welcome everyone. For those who are watching on video, I'd like to introduce everyone. I'm George Topol.
I'm Amanda Brahim, NERC.
Flora Bond, NERC.
Stephen Hughes, NERC.
Tom Vanderwood, NERC.
Kevin Polite, NERC.
Bailey with City of Portage.
AJ Monroe, City of Portage.
Okay, well, thank you. First thing on the agenda is minutes, but since we don't have a quorum, we'll postpone the approval of minutes until we have additional people here. So next on the agenda is AJ Monroe with the Portage Downtown Master Plan.
Great. Well, thank you, George, for the opportunity to present this plan to the Land Use Committee. The city's redevelopment commission has been working on creating a downtown in Portage for a long time. For those of you that are familiar with Portage, it's very auto-centric. What used to be considered, the main downtown area was a parking lot surrounded on two sides by buildings. Over the years, the community really felt the need and desire to have more of a walkable place where they could gather. That concept was really supported by the Portage Chamber of Commerce in the city in the late 90s, and the city hired a consultant in 1999 to develop the city's first plan for this area, and over the last 20 years has made a lot of investments in downtown, whether through land acquisition, demo, infrastructure improvements, and a lot of investment in public facilities. In more recent years, the city's found development partners in the private sector. Just the first page of the downtown plan there shows a pretty significant investment made by Holiday Properties in the Promenade at Founders Square. It had been, like I said, a number of years since the plan had been adopted, so the redevelopment commission wanted to update their plan, and did so late last year, and made the presentation of this plan in November of 2022. There's some acknowledgments of who. So the table of contents, instead of a long, deliberate, methodical planning process, we worked with Smith Group to really go through that more intense charrette exercise. So the designers were in town for 3 days and really developed the plan over the course of those 3 days to keep momentum and to make sure that momentum could continue. This is then the preferred site plan. The limits of this, just to orient everybody to the screen, moving from left to right, mid-screen is Central Avenue. To the left is Willow Creek Road. To the right is Hamstrom Road. And bordering this image on the north is Interstate 8090, or the Indiana Toll Road. The areas in gray that are highlighted in gray are existing buildings, and really the green areas, or the rendered areas, show where focused development would be proposed, or is proposed in this master plan. The pointer won't work. Most of the focus of this study is in that central core. Going back to this, in the first image was the promenade overlook. In the foreground was the spray pad at Founders Square. So the real investment in downtown started at the east end, kind of at the northwest corner of Central and Hamstrom. The next focused area is more in that central core, in what's known in Portage as the Portage Mall and the former Little League fields. So again, we went through a charrette process. This illustration here shows the study area. The dashed area shows the limits of the study area that Smith Group took a look at. Again, we went through that 3-day NCI charrette. Spent a lot of time on the ground, which I think is very important to a planning process. I think having the high-level designers we had working on this project, the boots on the ground, I think ultimately resulted in a much better outcome and plan for the city to enact. Again, early on in that first day, kind of looked in broad principles about downtown redevelopment, how that could be envisioned. They were very complimentary of the promenade at Founders Square development. Felt it was very important and how it engaged the street, how it engaged Founders Square Park, and really, as we were talking in that first day, really looked to take the design principles that were associated with the promenade and continue those to the west. We spent some time listening to folks that served on a steering committee, as well as those who would like to attended the charrette in those open sessions during that time. These are some of the things we heard about. Too small to read, but I'm sure the presentation can be sent out to everybody so you could kind of get a flavor for what was said. We, of course, always look to test alternatives. This shows looking at alternatives for ongoing development of Main Street. Those are the 3 images at the top. And then the 3 images at the bottom show a reimagined Central Avenue from Willow Creek Road to Hamstrom, and looked at reducing the width of that road in certain locations to provide more of a pedestrian supported space. Day 2, really in the charrette, really began to focus in on dialing in on a direction, which way we were going to go. This was really the day when we were out, boots on the ground, really understanding, okay, this could really work. This is something that's really important. And it was day number 2 that all got sorted out. Again, getting out there at ground truth and really taking a look at what was going on. And then in day 3, really began working on preparing the modeling, the preferred direction, and then that was presented that evening to the community. Section 2, we started talking about tools. Again, implementation is so important to a plan. We've been working on it for a number of years. There's significant investment in the tens of millions of dollars that have gone in to downtown publicly and then privately. I think it's reported that the investment in the promenade is in excess of $40 million. Again, looking at what kind of buildings could be built in the downtown. Again, the promenade was a great start. Looking at other opportunities as we go west. Looked at different designs and outcomes, landscaping, streets and alleys, parks and plazas, really again focusing on being pedestrian friendly, really focusing on making sure that experience when you arrive is a good one. Looking at the building blocks per block and how that would work itself out. We do have a series of longer blocks, so those mid-block crossings were something that was looked at and considered. I talked again, this is more, why do we plan? What's the value? Wealth creation, not needing to rely on multiple vehicles, living in a place where you can work immediately, all the things that we know result in a good development, good planning, good development. Talked about connectivity and mobility. The city for a number of years is always considered public transportation as an alternative. I'm sure will be a day when the densities and support is there. But as planners, as we're looking at this, we're always wanting to make sure that what we do today doesn't get in the way of a public transportation system that could be plugged in at a later date. A resiliency, you know, talking about heat island effects and energy and all that good stuff. Again, just if you know Smith Group or old JJR, you know, these are the things, sustainability was something that they've been talking about and touting since they started all those years ago, and that really resonates throughout this planning document. And again, digital access, this is the day and age we live. This is something that we, as the city of Portage, continue to look into and are looking at Wi-Fi solutions in our downtown area. And again, multi-generational housing, we all hear these things. These are all things that go into good planning. Looking at, you know, like you guys know all that stuff, right? Living and working, again, wealth creation, everything that builds a downtown. If you don't have to invest in a car, invest in gasoline, you can rely on public transportation. All of those tend to lead to a successful downtown, and folks that would embrace that and want to live in those spaces. I think the city's gone a long way in taking initial steps to program the downtown area. The 302 units and, I don't know, 750 residents that live in the promenade, you know, they're taking advantage of that, but there's always more to do, and there's a lot more opportunities to go vertical in downtown Portage. And affordability, again, something that we're always looking at. We see the cost of single-family homes. We know the cost of providing those services to those folks. So again, the downtown Portage plan doesn't fear density. It understands that that may lead to, well, we know it will lead to a more successful downtown when we have people living in downtown. And again, microclimate, again, looking at sustainability and how different approaches to landscape and open space design development will help downtown. As we know, we have a lot of paved spaces in downtown. A lot of that's been deprogrammed, will continue to be deprogrammed. So we're always considering that, understanding the value to do those things. Quality spaces really as a third space, as a place to, you know, to enjoy yourself. You know, some different options. Founder Square as a site has really provided some of these quality spaces. Some of the commercial development in the promenade at Founder Square has really embraced the idea of outdoor dining and things like that. And as we work with developers looking at new opportunities, these are the things that we really try to promote when we're talking with them about their investment in downtown Portage. So we want to be welcoming and engaging, we want to be interconnected, and we want to be authentic and vibrant. It's really that authentic and vibrant thing that was, or that guiding principle that was identified when we were out ground truthing on day 2. If you've been to what's left of the Portage Mall, there is a pretty active nightlife there. A lot of folks come, they spend time there. There's a lot of music and a lot of entertainment going on in that area. And instead of you know, kind of erasing it and starting fresh, you know, there might be a value in embracing that authentic downtown Portage. And this plan really ultimately moved in that direction. Again, we want to be catalyzing, activating, and complementing of spaces. We want to restore spaces where appropriate. That goes to the conversation I just mentioned. And we want to be open and bright with really creating spaces that are interactive in and out. I think we see early investment about in and out, you know, are open and bright as it relates to, you know, some of the investment in the public buildings, at the police station, at the fire station. These spaces are you can look into these spaces, they're welcoming, they want you to come into those spaces. So taking that sort of idea and applying that to private investment as well. So the preferred plan, our guiding principles here were to finish Founders Square, enlivened by local business investment and private-public partnerships, driven by walkability, connected by open space, energized Central Avenue, personalized and authentic, and guided by an informed phasing strategy. So our guided by informed phasing strategy, we're working on 2 projects right now in Founders Square. The first project is the area highlighted in yellow, which is a lighting plan for the pedestrians that use the east and north sides of Founders Square and the area to the west of the water tower where Hannesville Playground is. And the project highlighted in pink is a project that will soon be going out to bid that is looks at pedestrian access, circulation, crossings at certain streets, and additional on-street parking. Enlivened by local business investment, this is that area that was really ground truth on day 2. This is a project that we've solicited engineering firms to perform the design work, and interviews are scheduled here in a couple of weeks to move ahead with the design and then ultimately construction of that area. Walkability, I think that this illustrates kind of a continuation of what was developed or built at Promenade. This is the intersection of, well, this would be looking to the southeast. This is the intersection of what will be the new Main Street and Vivian. To the left of the screen would be Little League, the old former baseball complex. Kind of looking at that from a little different perspective. In the foreground would be those improvements in what's left of the Portage Mall, improvements to the ball complex in the middle ground, and off in the distance you see Founders Square, the Promenade, and all of this is identifying opportunities to connect or link those spaces. Energizing Central Avenue, this really is looking at different ways to approach Central Avenue. Central Avenue is a 5-lane cross section. Years ago, the planners had a much bigger vision, and they believed Central Avenue was going to serve a greater importance from Broadway and Gary east through Lake Station, through Portage, and to State Road 149. Over the years, that concept really went away, and this kind of 5-lane built section of Central Avenue is one of the remaining segments of a planning initiative that fell on its face. So now we run into a situation where we need to downsize that street, really connect the single-family neighborhoods to the south of Central Avenue. Some of the other public facilities south of Central, including the Portage Public Library, north to where downtown is. Here's an illustration of what that is envisioned to be. A turn lane, because we still do have a lot of cuts on Central Avenue, on-street parking, curbside parking, and then one through lane east and west. Narrowing down at intersections, controlled intersections, to provide pedestrians with a safer path across the road. Again, these personalized and authentic districts, again, the red area there was really identified when we were out on the ground, and then really trying to figure out that each is different, but we want to connect them to one another. And so, but each does have a bit of a unique flair. This guiding principle really ties into the phasing as well. And you kind of see how that goes. So the image here, the light green to the right was the Founders Square area. That was the area that has been worked on for a number of years. So our first guiding principle is finish Founders, and you'll see that's identified as the 1A project. The red area and the sports complex in the darker shaded green is identified as, is the 1B project. Phase 2 is then that phase 2 is then the next project, and so on. Phase 3, I think that the die's been cast. The development is really moving from east to west, and really phase 3 is a phase of downtown project is still years away. If it took us 20 years to do 1A and start on 1B, and considering then the work that's taking place south of Central Avenue, I think that the phase 3 project is definitely a few years off. And then this is the preferred site plan that pulls it all together. Again, we're going to look at this as we continue to develop our projects in terms of circulation, vehicular, pedestrian, so on. Yep,
Can you just go back?
I can.
So is the blue proposed roads?
They are,
So they are not existing?
correct.
Oh, so, okay.
So the blue roads, as they extend north of Central Avenue, continue the grid that's established south of Central with the extension of Carmen, with the extension of Vivian, and with the extension of Eleanor and Lois. So it really introduces that established grid south and north, and again creates that more walkable downtown. So yeah, the blue are proposed to be new public streets and drives. Parking, as we were going through the shred, and as planners, we all know, everybody's like, there's never enough parking. So to debunk that myth, we went through parking counts to identify what is available in the area. And this is very important as we're looking at future projects and considering future development projects. The open space network is really important for the city of Portage. This has proven to be pretty low hanging fruit. A lot of the public investments that we've seen in downtown are related to open space improvements. Founders Square, the plaza that's between the police and fire station, and then really the municipal investments that were made at the police station and fire station are really integrated into the open space that is discussed on this slide here. This is, like I said, this is the easier thing for the public to do. Harder to identify a partner and to go vertical with development. But again, the redevelopment commission's success is only going to come if we have a vertical development and new tax dollars coming into the allocation area. Then along those lines, it's important to think through the building program. We need to be cautious as to not to only want to continue building open spaces. We need to go vertical. We need to provide density, housing, office and retail opportunities so that people would want to live, work, play, and stay here in downtown. Then along those lines, we did look at an economic analysis assessment to help the decision makers better understand the importance of the vertical development as well as the low hanging fruit, which is the next public park. And that is it. So I'll go back to the preferred plan. And I guess open it up to any questions that folks may have. Thank you.
Thank you, AJ. Good presentation.
Thanks.
I like the idea of the main street, that you created the main street, which is not, so you still worked in Central, but you created the main street, which I think will be less busy. So for people to just would be more walkable and, I think
Yeah,
that's
and so that's a good point. And yeah, while we were conducting the charrette, folks are like, oh, it needs to be more walkable. It's like, there weren't sidewalks on Central Avenue, 18 years ago, 15 years ago. There were no pedestrian crossings. So it's always important to remind people of how far we actually have come. And then talk about the promenade and pointing out the fact that there are a number of walkable spaces in downtown Portage that have been developed. But as we all know, it's kind of what have you done for me lately and forget what happened yesterday. To Amon's point, as we look at Main Street extending west from Founders, you'll see that there was a lot of attention paid to how to finish that street to make that connection to the top left of the slide, which is Vivian. And it does get a little tricky because the ball fields really present a large gap in the street wall, right? So that's a pretty large space for a pedestrian to want to traverse. So when we talked about the building program, we talked about the open space connectivity. It's going to be very important that the experience of the pedestrian making their way from Founders to the west is a trip that they would want to take. This is a very large area in terms of scale, and to provide a nice, good experience for the pedestrian was very important. So, yeah, we do understand and believe what you said, Amon, there, that Main Street does provide that more immediate opportunity for the next phase of downtown development.
And I think like having the sports complex here, like it would be a good idea to have the residential that is right on Main Street, have like some of mixed use, so you can have some amenities and coffee shops and things like that.
Find that slide, yeah. So
Yeah, so I think it would be a
kind of back here a little bit, you kind of see
Yeah, I
here
see that, yeah.
where the 3-story building there,
That's one, yeah.
there, correct,
Yeah,
is at the corner of Main and Vivian,
yeah.
and would be the access point to that sports area.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, what the designers proposed there was that kind of mixed-use building. And then off in the distance, and it's a little.
First floor commercial.
Yeah, yes. Kind of where the tag is for Main Street downtown connector route, you'll see what looks to be rendered. There's a orangish building underneath that, and then there's a pink kind of site identified. That is this site here. It's so the sports complex, the bottom right corner of the sports complex, you'll see there's a large white block
Yeah.
set there. That would be a building on the north side of the street that would, and it's rendered as the pink building there,
Mhm.
that would at least close off that block.
And that's
We had-
yeah.
Yeah, so, and that's a tricky block too, right? Because very recently, the city built the parking lot on the south side of Main Street. So you see the Portage Police Station, you see their parking lot, and you see a darker gray area. That's a new parking lot. And that was built to support events that took place at Founders. We had originally, the plan had originally identified that as a building site, but in consult with our police department and kind of need for some additional off-street parking, the decision there was made to add that municipal lot in that block. So that'll be another tricky block for us to traverse, to help the pedestrian get through that space. But that's really why this open space network and that pedestrian experience along Main Street is going to be so important to focus on.
And have you considered also have bike lanes?
Yes, so the original infrastructure that was built out there did build a 10-foot wide sidewalk on the north side of Main Street that made its way all the way to Hamstrom Road. So that sidewalk is still there. When the promenade was approved, I think there was a miss in the review process that didn't re-establish that pathway. We're gonna be doubling down on that to make sure that we identify a trail pathway through downtown Portage. Over the years, investments or grants are secured, but you do from time to time get people who have other ideas, and those other ideas really resulted in funding that was to build the downtown connector trail pushed to other projects. But I think as time has gone on, people see the error in that decision and are now making steps to make sure that that trail connection that would ultimately link in Portage, the Prairie Duneland Trail to the Iron Horse Trail through downtown.
AJ, how is this being received by the current property owners, building owners, the tenants?
The best way to say that is, I think it's a very slippery slope to plan on other people's property. The vertical development that you see in this building program is all proposed on property currently owned by the public. The areas that, so if I go back, and this may take me a while, I apologize. So the areas that are in gray are the properties that are owned and they're still in private hands, right? Existing businesses. The area, as you look at this, and the phase 1B project, which would be Vivian Main Street, you can tell it's going to have an impact on the existing buildings on the what would be the west side of the Portage Mall. Many of those folks were involved and engaged in the process, and historically have been supportive about working collaboratively with the city to make those improvements to the parking lot and real estate that would be to their east. Beyond that, Kevin, we tend to not do planning on other people's property. The one I think sort of diversion from that is if I could find the phasing. I had this memorized at some point. The phase 2 project, the yellow project, would require a little bit of collaboration between properties already owned by the city of Portage and a couple of developers, but it's set off as a phase 2 project because I think we all acknowledge that it was going to take a little bit of time to establish that relationship, to look at how to construct a deal before that was really taken out onto the street and unveiled.
And I appreciate you mentioning it because we need to make it clear that you're trying to avoid stepping on people's toes.
Correct.
I like the fact that you brought up Portage Mall and helping with any revitalization issues. Are you going to TIF this district possibly in the future, or, I mean?
So this area, good question, this area is currently in the allocation area. The investments that have been made to date are only a result of that. That's the only way it could happen. One of the things that were key to this, and this study didn't, or this slide presentation didn't spend a bunch of time on it, the report does, our incentives, implementation strategies. On that front, the redevelopment commissions made it very clear to staff and those who are listening that implementing the downtown plan is their #1 priority. We're currently reviewing incentives that would be beyond what has been the historic incentive in Portage, which is some sort of economic development bond deal. They are considering revisiting the city's tax abatement ordinance to add tax abatement to the toolbox for development. In the economic assessment that was provided by HWC, it became pretty clear that the single site developments do have a gap in financing, but the project is too small to support an economic development bond. So abatements would need to be considered if we're going to bridge that sort of funding gap that's identified for those smaller single-site developments. We're also looking at reinstituting the facade improvement program and looking at other incentive strategies, reinvestment strategies to support existing businesses. Looking at, are there options for the City of Portage Redevelopment Commission to partner with existing businesses on interior work as well as exterior work, like historically in a facade improvement program. And also reinstitution of the Downtown Development Corporation. When Mayor Olson was mayor, he established this corporation, and they had a number of years of success. As time went on, the Downtown Development Corporation was rolled into the Portage Economic Development Corporation. And as then time went on, I think we saw our Economic Development Corporation, our LEDO, kind of more get focused in economic development projects as opposed to these sort of redevelopment, revitalization projects in downtown. As we were talking through that, I think everybody decided that it was going to be very important that we reset that group as well and get a group in the community narrowly focused on downtown redevelopment.
And this area, has it formally been designated as an economic development zone or area?
Yes.
And so it's delineated.
Sure.
So when you're talking to people in other parts of the city who would like to see some kind of revitalization, you had public meetings to really advance this notion. And
correct. Yeah. So
I like the focus you guys have too.
Portage has one economic development revitalization area, our allocation area. It includes here, this part of Portage, right, the north side. It makes its way downtown and it includes some property along US Highway 6. So it's one area. Over the years, the allocation area has become very strong. While downtown is a priority project, I think the examples are evident, is that they still look at other parts of the allocation area for reinvestment, and continue to do so. The Redevelopment Commission's been the supporter of Portage's ongoing efforts to construct the Marquette Greenway Trail. They're the ones who provide all the design dollars, the local match for the grants that the city secured, whether here through NERC or through the state of Indiana Next Level Trails. The Redevelopment Commission owns a large piece, this building, this property, as well a lot of other properties in downtown or on the north side. And so downtown is their stated #1 priority, but they do value and understand that investment in these other areas of the allocation area are important, as well as having potentially available cash in hand if the next big economic development deal is in place and they want to be a partner in terms of making a project like that happen. So I think historically our city's redevelopment commission has been, I think, a leader in terms, and a leader that's accountable to maybe different interests within the area.
And I have a question related to that. Have the city thought about having a shuttle bus to the, Portage Ogden Dunes station, which will give you another opportunity, which I'm gonna present it soon, that the city of Valparaiso will get the TDD district. They have already legislation about that, because they have a shuttle to the train station.
Yeah.
Which is a good opportunity for Portage to have a TDD.
We have a TDD.
You have by the
Yeah.
station, yeah,
Right.
but in the downtown.
Yeah.
If you got a shuttle in the downtown.
It's been studied. The studies historically have given better understanding to how that program would need to be subsidized, supported likely by the redevelopment commission.
Mhm.
There hasn't been any action on that at this point, to implement a system. I think that, if there's a right time, that it could be. I don't know if that right time is yet.
Yeah, but like, I mean, with the double tracking now,
Yeah.
and it's a good opportunity for Portage and maybe to attract more people. And they wanted to reach like a better opportunity in Chicago, so, so I
Absolutely.
think it would be nice to have that.
Yeah, I think when there appears to be a market and an opportunity, I think that is something that we're gonna do. I think very similar to Valpo. Valpo first looked internally, they created a system internally, they then created a system that provided a direct route to Chicago, and now they're looking to provide a direct route right to the train station. They're just 20 years ahead of Portage in terms of that public infrastructure. And I think that, there will be a right time. I know it's something that I keep track of, and would never say no to it, or never say, yeah, this isn't the right time to look at it, but I think it's about trying to find the right time of when to look at it.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions? Okay.
We have 3 people, so we can have a call, I think.
Oh, we do?
Yeah,
Okay.
Asia is a member.
Well, thank you for the
Oh.
invitation, and thank you for your
Yeah.
time.
It's
Thank
really-
you.
yeah.
All right, well, we appreciate that very much, and we'll be looking forward to seeing the development of the downtown area. And see it come to fruition. What's the
Ongoing,
timeline?
continued success, Mr.
Timeline?
Topple. We've been doing okay so far.
Yeah, what's the timeline?
Forever, right?
I mean,
Like, we-
That's the answer. So,
It's an
so
infinite horizon.
it's a good question, but I think it's also important to note that communities are always developing, right? We develop or redevelop, we develop or redevelop. And so I would say that it's an ongoing pursuit, that we're always looking at redevelopment, new development, and then we're looking to maybe potentially correct something that may have not been a misstep. And I think a real good example of that is, and again, I don't think there should be any harm in saying, hey, we thought it was gonna be this and ended up being something else, right? I don't have a crystal ball, maybe you guys do.
no problem, no
Okay.
solutions, right?
Right, exactly. So I think the example here is like Founders Square, and I wish I could maybe find a better image. Let's see if I can find an image just of Founders Square, right? So this would be the example of, in 2004, you design a set of infrastructure, 2005, you build that set of infrastructure, and then over the course of the next 18 years, people make different decisions. So you see the fire station, and then you see the block directly north of it, right? That's the Portage Amphitheater. That block was originally designed to be commercial development. So you'll remember there was an east-west street that was at the south end of Founders Square. Now it's no longer a square, it's a rectangle. So there was a public street there, right? That street was additionally placed there because everybody envisioned that there would be commercial development facing the square, and there would also be commercial development facing Central Avenue. Well, over the course of time, decisions were made to build a new fire station number 3, to move the station out of City Hall, and the second one was the construction of the amphitheater, right? And as a result of that, as a planner, we looked at that, and planners, we looked at that and said, we have a park to the north of this public street and a park to the south of the public street. And then in addition, we added the Hannah's Hill Playground that is to the west of the tower. And we started to recognize that the park programmers were closing the street 45 days a year, and then you would open it up, and then the kid doesn't realize to go from the amphitheater to the playground, I'm running across the street, that maybe the week before it might have been closed because they were there for a festival. Now it's Tuesday. So again, to develop, redevelop, and develop again is because of past actions, past decisions. It required a look at that area. So that project removed the public street, linked the 2 park spaces with pathways and the food court plaza. And so, resulted in now Founder Square having a little shape more like a rectangle. But that's okay, right? So we're inventing and reinventing ourselves all the time. So I think it would be, I would never give a timeline or an answer, because I think it's a never-ending process to build and create more resilient communities.
Well, I understand that portion of it, but I was thinking in phase 1, phase 2, phase A.
Phase 1A
Yeah.
is, the yellow project is out to bid, and bids are being considered. The pink area project, which is the second project for Founder Square, is going out to bid later, I think it's early next month. And then the 1B project, the engineering design of that is, the interviews are taking place in September.
Okay, so it's in hand,
We're always moving forward.
okay.
And always being flexible.
Have to be flexible.
Progress is our most important product.
Forward.
We never know what the demands of the public are gonna be, even next year. It's, things
That's
vary.
I think we're very cognizant of where we do the planning is because there's enough to do planning wise and development of our downtown on property already owned by the city of Portage. And being very cautious and careful not to adversely impact the people that are there, committed to your community, open for business, because you want them to thrive, right? That's the whole point. And that was something that we identified. I think we knew it, but it became clear when we were out there on day 2 ground truthing. It's like, there's a lot of good things going on here. Why not embrace that? Let's support those folks who stuck it out.
And thank you for saying that. And it shows, reciprocation for the support of all these years of the basic, the businesses, the families that have been pushing the whole thing. But at the same time, we want to make sure from a public standpoint, our intent isn't to intrude or to take anything away. It's to enhance and improve the communities, give them a sense of place.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to let you know that 5 more people are watching on YouTube.
Great.
Okay, and welcome those people.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much for the review of the master plan. If we, since we have a quorum now,
Yeah.
we can go back to the minutes.
I have one, the appraisal planner sent me an email and she reviewed the minutes and she said Bob Thompson wasn't in the last meeting. And it's, and yeah, it's listed on the meeting, so.
He wasn't, I thought he came in late.
I think he came to the final presentation of the plan, maybe. But yeah, I think it was here. I'll have to review
I
it.
thought he was.
Yeah, review it, yeah.
Okay.
I would say it's on video, so we'll see if he came in.
Okay,
It'll probably be on video
okay,
either way.
Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
idea.
Okay, so.
You're
with-
reading
with
my
that-
mind, Kevin.
With that consideration, a motion,
I'll make a motion to approve, just have staff review the tape for the attendance of
Okay,
Mr. Thompson.
with that understanding, we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? So with that, that being stated, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So we have, the ayes have it, there are no nays. There's only the 3 of us, right?
We all agree.
Okay.
It's a
All
beautiful
right,
world.
so the minutes are approved. Okay, so moving forward, the next is Iman Ibrahim with the NERC regional update. Is that correct?
Thank you.
Okay, take it away.
Yeah, first I wanna just mention that like we adopted the 2050 plan and we're just waiting for some air quality decisions to be also added to the plan later. The plan, it's in a final shape, we try to make it looks better and neat, but it's already online, but we're gonna have the final version soon, maybe in September. So that's a 2050 plus plan. Today I'm just giving a quick update about phase two in the e-commerce, which we are working on that now. The first study was actually came as a recommendation from the 2050 plan, and we put together a scope to have this study. We wanted to look at the trends and impacts on land use and transportation and the traffic in the future, since we expected to have increase of e-commerce activities and freight trucks by almost 46% by the year 2040. So we have to be ready for that. So we put the plan, we looked at the local impact of the movements of the trucks within the area, the demand and needs of the warehousing and the distribution centers. We also put like a travel demand around the area. And basically also we looked at the potential location of the next slide, please. So in this one, we came up with these recommendations based on number of analysis. First, the density of the employment, residential, the proximity to the highway, the congestion, and different things to come up with the blue area, which is that was a potential location for e-commerce. After releasing the study, like we just found out that Amazon just have like a major hub and warehouse in Broadway and opened within the area here on Broadway. So and that was one of the recommended location in this area. So which we're going in the right track. They're looking also to the proximity to Chicago. So that was a potential location. But next slide, please, or I can do this. I'm sorry. So we came up with like a 5 recommended area. So we have the number 1, which is north of Lake County, and the 2 the south or central Lake County, and then the number 3 is Portage, Birds Harbor, and town of Porter area, Chesterton, and then the LaPorte, Michigan City, and also we have number 4 here is Valparaiso area. So based and we have this Scott around the transportation modeling to see, what's the best will be location in this area to come up with, and the area that is highlighted, like on black, that will be the best location if we want to locate warehouses or distribution centers within this area. So we already completed, we identified once we were done with the plan, we identified funding through our planning funds, the PL, as 40,000 federal funds and minimum 10,000 of a local match. The first study here we came up with, first this is showing what we did. So we have completed 4 projects that came as strategies and recommendations from the e-commerce or the 2050 plan. We still have some in progress, which is the yellow one, and the one incomplete is still in the red color. So that's where we are, but I think we're going very well with the implementation of the e-commerce recommendation. So this is the area, so we completed the first one, which we provided the fund for the sub-area plan for the city of Gary. The area that was identified was between Grant Street and Burr Street, and we released an RFP. We selected a consultant, which was the Archie Group, and then they came up with some good recommendations and planning objectives. The next one here showing the plan and where is the transportation, distribution, and logistics within this area, or the TDL. And then they identified the sub-priority area, which is one highlighted or red as a first step of implementation. So this was the plan came from the city of Gary. The next one now we looked at the 2050 plan, 2050 plus recommendations of the freight plan. And in this one, we looked at some analysis and some results and recommendations. came from the freight plan and to consider it with the next phase or the project two of the e-cars. So as we look at the trends here, it shows, the pointer working only on the wall. But as you see, the last one, the transportation and warehousing, we have the significant employment change in the transportation and warehousing. In comparison to the US average, we even higher than that. So that's showing that this sector is growing, and we really need to consider that in our plans in general. This is also showing the freight dependent industry regional shift, and again, we have the more competitive one is the transportation and warehousing. Also, the wholesale trade is growing. We have some mining. I know that it's showing here the mining employment is declining, but we're still going well with the competitive within the area. Here is also showing the tonnage model split for Northwest Indiana. We have the trucking and the pipeline is the highest one for the tonnage moving within the area. And then the value of the model is split. We also have the trucking, and still also we have the pipeline. And then coming after that is the multiple modes and mail, which is the last mile delivery. So we also expecting here by the 2050 that the tonnage will be increasing by 13%, and also the value of the goods will increase by almost 42%. So that means that we will expecting to have more moving tonnage, and also the value of the goods will increase significantly. So that was some of the analysis came out of the 2050 plus freight plan. And based on that, also we looked at some other analysis here to see, where will be the next project, or the number one candidate project. So we looked at the bottlenecks. As you see, we all experienced that as the red one here in 1894 with the truck traffic, this is the truck bottleneck. But as you see, most of the other area, we don't have this issue. It's mostly green, as you see here in this area. So we're not planning anymore to have any additional projects in the red and orange area. We already got the yearly plan, and I know that we have a significant manufacturing and employment within this area, but really we don't want to keep adding trucks to this area. We looked also at the transportation employment. So as you see here, the red one in Munster, this is have a very high transportation employment density. As we're looking also at the Hammond, Chicago, and Whiting area has a significant transportation employment density. The other areas still need more transportation because all the focus on the west of Lake County. So that's give us a good indication to where to look at the next one.
What transportation employment, could you define that?
The trucking company, the warehousing, like Pepsi, for example, in the Munster, has a significant trucking, moving all around. So that's transportation.
Thank you.
This is the manufacturing employment, and as you see here in Portage and Burns Harbor here, with the U.S. Steels and also the Port of Indiana, we have a significant manufacturing employment. But as you see in the next one, we don't have, we have all of this manufacturing, but we don't have enough transportation employment within this area. So there is a need to have a more warehousing, distribution centers, trucking company to be added to this area to reduce all the congestion within the Lake County. So that's another one that we looked at. So to come up with the sub-area plan selection process to get the next project, so we looked at the first candidate, which is a cluster 3, here number 1, is Burns Harbor and Portage area, and we look at they have the land availability within the area, which is Northwest Indiana is highly developed, especially in the northwest corner, closer to Chicago, so it's already developed, so it runs out of vacant or developable land, so we have more opportunities in Burns Harbor and Portage. The area is less congested with the level of surface A, B, and C. They have a very good connectivity with the 94, 80, US 6, 12, and 20 corridors, so which is amazing connectivity. They have access to 5 interchanges within the area. They also the proximity to the Port of Indiana and US Steel, which is manufacturing. So that gave it like a first candidate. We have to meet with Portage and Burns Harbor about this area and see, your opportunity on that. And so as I mentioned, we have like a 40,000 and we need a local match from Burns Harbor and Portage and maybe Town of Porter also to have a study within this area.
How soon would you be looking
Very
to
soon.
proceed?
We
This
already
year?
identified the fund.
This year?
Yes, until December, like if we can come up with that, would be great. So the next one, or the second candidate here, which is around the Crown Point and Winfield and of course Lake County. And they are next to I-65, provide north-south connectivity, also less congestion with the level of surface B and C. And the other thing that as we looked at some analysis, the share-to-share analysis also showed that the transportation warehousing industry is very important to Lake County economy than the Indiana in general. So that's another thing that make us focus. If it didn't work, like with Portage, Burns Harbor, and Town of Porter, like soon with the funding, we will move to the next area. So that's our selection process. Here I did like a real time around 3 p.m. Live traffic, and as you see here, the traffic is still within this area is great. We don't have any like a major congestion within this area. So moving some of the trucking or the warehousing to this area will be important also for the economy.
Well, and so I guess reminding myself back to what was done in the sub-area in the city of Gary, the study will look at available lands for.
And marketing.
Okay.
We did marketing analysis, we had engineers, and we had also the planner, so they planned in a specific, the need is, the ideal distribution centers or warehouses is between like a 50,000 to 200,000 square foot. So they really identified the specific parcels, like that could be, like utilized for that.
Thank you.
So the next one, which is cluster 2 here, is the Winfield area. And look again to the live traffic, real-time traffic here is still good in comparison to 1894. So that's just an overview of what we're doing here from the regional perspective and the next project here of the e-commerce. Any questions?
Okay, thank you, man. And you got the next topic too, which is legislative update.
Yes, we do that in every meeting here. You have a handout here of the Indiana, like House bill and Senate bill. So the first one, I don't do, can we have them?
I don't have it, it's on my other,
Oh,
I don't have it.
I think maybe if you need the handout, other people,
They're at the
we have
table.
outside
Yeah.
the handout if you would like to look at it.
Thank you.
So that's like an item of the agenda that like we look at the legislative updates that is related to land use or transportation, transit, economy. Um, So the first one, which was already signed and it's a public law now, is Land Use Task Force. And in this one, they actually wanted to have to the Indiana or modify the Indiana code concerning the General Assembly to create a land use task force to study and make recommendations for the areas where food insecurity exists, and also look at the development growth trends in rural, suburban, and urban communities across Indiana. And the third one was other communities' growth issue. So this is like became a law of 124 in May 1st of this year, and also signed by the governor. So that's the first House bill I want to talk about. The second one, which is here specifically economic development for Lake County, which is a Senate Bill 434, and that was issued as a public law 195 on May 4 of this year, and also signed by the governor. And this is like basically to establish a blighted property demolition, or they call it demolition funds. So in this demolition fund, they will be using that for demolishing a qualified property located within the transit district, and they are focusing more on the Geary Metro Center. So that is the first one. The second one also will be related to the convention funds, which is also for the Lake County Convention and Event Center. So they provide this fund, they will increase the innkeeper tax to utilize this, both funds. So as I mentioned, it's already a public law of 195. The next one, which is the next page here, which is a House Bill 1049, and that's basically for the Department of Transportation. So in that here, so they accept the proposal now, award the contract for the construction improvements or maintenance of a road if the lowest responsive and qualified bid is less than 3 million. It was before 1 million. So, and now also they allow to have at least 3 proposals. It was before 4 proposals. So that was already signed by the governor in April 20th, 2023, Public Law 60. The last one, which I was really surprised of this one, because I know that they had a House bill from Solidai of 1540, but they didn't move this one since January. But I found this House Bill 1046, and this is specifically again to establish like a TDD area for, they didn't mention here, but I know that it's for the city of Valparaiso, if they have a shuttle or commuter bus service to Chicago, or they have a shuttle to a train station of the South Shore, and it's located in a county of 185,000 to 200,000, which is specifically Porter County. But this one actually became a public law 210, and that was actually signed on May 4 of 2023. So they approved that for the city of Valparaiso, but like they had a similar one from Solidai, but like I didn't hear anything about that. There is no advancement of 1540. So these are all the legislative updates that I got lately. So, and I will keep updating you of what's going on within the area.
Okay, thank you, Ms.
Mhm.
Next on the agenda is community updates. Portage, any additional information? You got quite a bit from you already? So, moving right along.
Well, we're working on a lot of things. but nothing, I don't think anything for the good of the order today.
Okay. All right, in Porter County? Kevin?
I've got nothing to report.
Okay.
All sorts of things are happening, but it's
Okay.
not my charge.
From Union Township's standpoint, I have had a number of inquiries about the proposed Valparaiso, or I guess it's approved,
Yeah,
Valparaiso Shorewood Forest.
boundary is
Urban,
not,
urban,
yeah, we still
but the
working on
boundaries have not been set yet, is that?
No,
correct?
we have a boundary, but, like you will be reviewing that
Okay.
after the meeting.
Well, I just wanted to
Yeah.
state for the record that it's in process, and in progress, and
yeah,
more
maybe-
information will be forthcoming.
Yeah,
Right
Tom
now-
can maybe, do you wanna say
I
something?
understand it's for public review. The federal government kind of sets these urbanized areas and,
Every 10 years, I think.
Yes,
it's a
every
review
census.
process.
Yeah, so there's a census designated urban area, which is fixed. We can't
mhm,
make it any smaller or really change it much. But the Federal Highway Administration allows MPOs and state departments of transportation to expand the urban area to smooth it out and make it a little more logical, a little more in line with community planning and municipal boundaries and those types of things. And, like highway connectivity, so that like a corridor doesn't kind of weave in and out of the urban area. So we've been working with all the municipalities that are kind of on the edge of the urban areas, I should say, because there's 3 now. There's the Indiana portion of the Chicago urban area. There's a new Valparaiso, Shorewood, Forest urban area, and then the Michigan City, LaPorte urban area. So we've been working with all of those communities to smooth out the boundary. As of last week, we've met with everyone, and we have a draft boundary now that we're going to present at the TPC meeting in a couple weeks, and then as just kind of an update. And then ultimately, we're going to submit it to the commission for approval in October. As it relates, or kind of with respect to the Valparaiso Shorewood Forest urban area, the main kind of, I guess, effect of having that be a separate urban area is that it's no longer part of the Group 1 Chicago urbanized area. It's its own. So there's like going to be like basically like a separate, for lack of a better term, pot of funding that will be distributed to NERC, but it's specifically generated by that urban area. In terms of our programming, we're still able to program dollars back and forth between urban areas. So we don't anticipate any major shift in the way that funds are programmed in Lake and Porter County. Michigan City, LaPorte, they've always been their own separate urban area, and that will continue. As far as we can tell, there's no desire to change anything. So essentially, yeah, there's going to be a little bit of accounting work that'll have to be done as it relates to the highway funding. That'll be different.
One question is, because Shorewood Forest is a privately owned community, and the people of Union Township have been inquiring as to the concept, but we'll find out more in future meetings.
It has public roads though, so when
It has
it
county
comes,
roads.
yeah, public roads.
Right.
And of course, US 30 passing on the north side of it, all subject to, as he said, the Group 1 funds, LaPorte County being
Well,
2.
it's
So we're all mixed, George, as far as all the urbanized areas.
I'm just
And
trying
it's
to respond to
expansion.
questions from the community members as to what that all means, so.
Yeah, essentially, it doesn't really mean a whole lot for a resident. The only real impact is when NERC generates our transportation improvement program, a project that's in the Valparaiso urban area will have a small, one of the columns will say where the funding source is. It'll be Group 2 instead of or is it Group 3?
2 instead of 1.
Group 2 instead of Group 1 funding. So
Well,
it doesn't really make a huge difference.
okay,
And the other issue is with urbanized areas, there are certain air and water quality rules that will have to be ascribed to. For example, all the urbanized areas had to follow the MS4 rules that were introduced 30 years ago, and they kind of tightened those down 20 years ago. I delineated the urbanized areas for Porter County just to be very focused and specific to what our liabilities were. But the state and the Fed decided entire communities, Valparaiso, no matter what the densities of the population were, the whole city limit was considered an urbanized area and subject to the stormwater quality rules, for example. Portage likewise. And now they've been reviewing all those. Overall, we've been expanding our coverage, and the county ordinances, by the way, speak to most of those rules anyway, and have for years. But we didn't have an overseer for parts of that until we started to accept more of that responsibility, and then we introduced stormwater fees, so we had some way to cover the cost of it 6 years ago.
okay. Well, thank you. That's all I have from our end. Anything else from anyone else in the room about anything particular?
When I mentioned the stormwater quality, remember that Shorewood is a property owners association.
Right.
That's how they're independent,
Mm-hmm.
and they had responsibility for internally for some of the stormwater quality issue. We still take on responsibility for all the roads and the appurtenances, but we figure out things, and that's part of what there are ongoing discussions.
In the general community in that area always start asking questions when something of that nature comes up, and if you're the one getting the questions, you have no answers, it's difficult to respond.
And in all fairness, I don't think the state or Fed make it easy to respond, so.
Okay. All right, well, thank you very much. There being nothing further on community updates, the next Land Use Committee meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, November 15th, 2023 at 10 a.m. in the Zoom room. Anything else? There being nothing, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you. 11:20.
That looks good for downtown revitalization.